Just gonna have a flight with a little XK A600 Beaver. See, he's got a chunk missing out there. It's repaired with tape, though. I mean, you do what you can. I've crashed this guy fairly severely a number of times. I crashed him into things, posts and fences, unfortunately, which is mainly. I mean, if you crash him into the grass, you probably won't break pieces off him like that, but unfortunately he's had his whole front ripped off by crashing into fences, and that wing's been ripped, the right wing's been ripped right off there. But he keeps on trucking, hopefully. Little servos in the wings there. And it's an XK plane, 6-axis and 3-axis stabilisation. He would not take off the grass. I'm hoping he'll take off okay off the table. He would take off a runner, or you can hand launch him. But the wheels are tiny. But he is, you see, he is two-cell. He's two-cell and brushless. He has a brushless motor, and he's two-celled. Two-cell power, you know, and it's just... they're just much more capable than the little one-cell planes. You know, it's it's a whole different game. You know, flying a two-celled brushless plane. Let's try not to go totally away from ourselves there. See, we're getting too far away to really see what we're doing there. Little bit of wind getting up. Now this guy can fly in actually much more wind than this one. It's a tiny, tiny little, you wouldn't see it on the camera, I don't think. There's no vapor trail, but there's like a tiny, well, it's not really tiny, of course it's a jet, but it's so high that it just looks minute. This guy, he uses the same kind of transmitter, and he has exactly the same control scheme and everything, and the same kind of stabilization as the A430, the Edge, which came out this year. This guy, on the other hand, has been out for several years. But the big difference is this guy is, you know, like he's high wing and slower, so he's just way more controllable. The Edge, you know, even this guy tends to get further away than you can see, you know, if you're not careful. But the Edge just gets further away than you can see really quickly because it's such a tiny, tiny plane. See, and this guy is very controllable. You know, you can, you just have to make sure you don't get him so far away that you can't see him. He's very controllable, but he can go quite fast for a Beaver. I mean, probably faster than would be scale speed for a Beaver, really. But he can fly slower. The A430, you've got to... I'm getting tired. Yeah. The A430, you've got to... you know, you've got to fly fairly fast, and it's smaller. The numbers are the size. So that's the sort of wingspan in millimeters. A430 is 430 millimeters. This guy's 600 millimeters. So this guy is, you know, like a 33% bigger, more or less, whatever that is, more than 33% bigger. Even this guy, in stabilized mode, he's pretty relaxing to fly. That's like safe mode. That's what I've got him in at the moment. I put him back in it now. You know, and he's pretty relaxing in that. But in non-stabilized mode, he's okay, but you got to stay on the sticks in non-stabilized mode. He's not a super relaxing plane to fly in non-stabilized mode. He's, you know, you got to stay on the sticks, and he's fairly small, and you don't see him that well. Even with this guy, I have to say I appreciate having the stabilized mode to go back to, because it's just so much more relaxing. You stick him back in stabilized mode, and he'll just trundle around cheerfully, and you don't have to be, you know, you don't have to be staying on the sticks the whole time, pretty much. In fact, you can take your hands entirely off the sticks briefly if you need to in stabilized mode. What I mean by stabilized mode is 6-axis mode, like, you know, like most of these planes. He has wind stabilization. His stabilization is fairly sensible, though, For some reason, the A1200, which is also an XK plane, seems to have a totally different form of stabilisation programming, and I don't much like it. The stabilisation programming in the it's not a straight 6-axis and 3-axis like this. It's some sort of weird system where it's in a even in the highly stabilised mode, it's not entirely 6-axis. It's not totally self-leveling and restricted. But on the other hand, it really has a strong tendency to try and not this, the A1200 I'm talking about now. This is quite sensible, a stabilization on this. It's the 3-axis helps you in the wind, and the 6-axis makes it really relaxing to fly because it just trundles round and stabilizes itself. It's very, very like E-Flight safe mode. But the 1200's not horrible to fly or anything. See, I can't see that very well when it's over there like that. The 1200 is not horrible to fly or anything, but honestly, the 1200 is actually less tiring to fly and more sensible to fly in the less stabilized mode, because it's weird to fly the 1200 in the highly stabilized mode. It keeps trying to level itself when you don't want it to, making it hard to fly sensibly. It's not a relaxing experience. This is. They got this one right, I think. And this one, and as far as I can see, they almost transferred the programming from this directly to the A430. It's just that the A430 is considerably more powerful, and so it's well, it's not more. It has a smaller wingspan and it's smaller. So this guy has power to spare, frankly. You know, he really has power to spare. You know, he can go vertical, he can... Anyway, I have no timer on him. I should probably bring him in. I've been flying him for a while now. Like a lot of these things, he has the downside that you can't really land him worth a darn in the grass, because... I'm kind of stalling him now. I'm trying to bring him down, but I'm over-slowing him down. Oh, sun's bright. You know, because those wheels are just so tiny that he's going to tip over when you land him. There's definitely we're flying into the wind there. You can definitely tell we're flying into a little bit of wind. But as I say, I've flown this guy in quite strong winds, actually, like up to almost 30 kilometers an hour or so. And he's not unflyable. Because he's got plenty of power and he's quite controllable. Yeah, well, that was an apology for a landing. But I mean, there is no real sensible landing technique available. He's just not going to land on this grass. The grass, relative to his scale, the grass is just too rough. But he's certainly got plenty of power. You know, he's very comparable in many ways to the UMX two-cell brushless planes, things like the J3 Cub, which I absolutely love. I don't like this guy quite as much as the J3 Cub, although I like this guy. And the Cessna and the Waco that they just came out with. This guy's in the same sort of general class as those, basically. Except the safe is the only one of those, the Cessna's the only one of those that has safe. So you could perhaps compare him most directly to that Cessna. Oddly enough, I've got floats on that Cessna, but despite the fact this guy's a Beaver, he doesn't have a float option. Though the Beaver's well known as a float plane, I don't see how you'd easily put floats on this guy, and they don't offer any particular float option for him. In exactly the same colour scheme as my Fly Zone Beaver. So I've got the Fly Zone Beaver, which is it has a fish on the tail, and it's exactly the same paint scheme and everything. But what about a 4.5 foot, 5 foot wingspan? Anyway, there you go, the XK A600 Beaver. This is one I would have no hesitation in recommending. You won't regret buying this plane.